We all have certain players, certain teams, certain situations that we like to monitor a little more closely than others. Here are some of the biggest things that I'm monitoring this week that I think could have big implications in the fantasy football world. Welcome back into the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I am Garret Price. And I got a list of things that I'm trying to keep an eye on this week because I think they could have some fantasy football impact. First one, let's go to the Chiefs and Bears game. Yeah, there's two things in this game that I want to keep an eye on. First of all, it's going to be Justin Fields. He has been the biggest topic of conversation all week long with his comments about the coaching and is he actually a good quarterback? Would they consider drafting somebody? All of these things have been thrown around. One of the big things that I walked away with, though, Justin Fields saying that he feels like he's playing a little robotic, overthinking. Are we going to see the old Justin Fields a little bit more in this really big, important matchup against Kansas City? And can he do it both running the football and throwing the football? I think when he's trying to do just one or the other, he's not been very successful. Can we see him incorporate both? Well, that's one thing I'm keeping an eye on. And in the same game, I'm keeping an eye on Sky Moore. Week 1, first game of the season, we had nothing to do other than react to the first game, and Sky Moore didn't put up the best of efforts in Week 1. However, in Week 2, he did have 70 receiving yards and a touchdown in that game, including one big catch to kind of help seal things towards the end of the game. Does that help boost him moving forward, and do we see him become a more consistent, reliable target for Patrick Mahomes in this offense? Next thing that I'm watching closely, I'm watching the Vikings and Chargers game. Not necessarily because there's certain players that I want to watch for fantasy, although there is some truth to that. Could be a very high scoring affair, both very good offenses that could put up a lot of yards. But the big thing is both of these teams are 0-2 with some pretty big playoff aspirations. One of these teams obviously has to move to 0-3 unless we get some sort of tie, which I don't think neither team would really like very much. What happens if one of these teams go to 0-3? Do we start to see maybe some rumblings about some guys getting moved, some guys getting traded, maybe even a Kirk Cousins level type player, maybe a Keenan Allen type guy? Are the coaches on the hot seat? A lot to watch in this game, and I think there's going to be a lot of intriguing moving parts, not necessarily just for point scoring purposes, but how the landscape of these teams will shift and how that impacts fantasy football through the rest of the season. All right, let's move on over to the Cleveland-Tennessee game. And of course, I'm bringing up Tyjae Spears. He's looked really good so far this year. Number 1 rusher, according to PFF. Third best in pass protection. He's been incredible. And Derrick Henry's a little dinged up. We'll see if he gets his full complement of touches or not. But I wouldn't be surprised if they utilize Spears a little bit more if Henry isn't 100%. We saw in Week 1 he actually outsnapped Derrick Henry. And in this game, it's looking like DeAndre Hopkins might not play either. So that might lessen the passing game. They might focus on the run and the short passing game a little bit more, which is where we would see Tyjae Spears involved. And look, if he has a big week this week, good luck acquiring him. He's going to be way too expensive. A young running back in that kind of offense that's producing, good luck acquiring him. So if you want to try to get your hands on a guy that I think is a fantastic player that I've been talking about all offseason, this is possibly your last chance to get him at an even semi-affordable rate. The price is only going to go up, up, and up if he has a big game against Cleveland. Next up, I want to talk about two situations in the Miami-Denver game. And yes, they are both at the running back position. Devon Achane, we've been hearing a little bit of buzz about him. We saw glimpses this past week, and he looked pretty good in that offense. And with his speed, he could take off and have a big week at any time. Ahmed is out, so he's in. And obviously, Mostert is still a big factor in this offense. But I think we see a little bit more Achane this week. And this is another situation where a young running back could burst onto the scene, and then it's going to be really, really difficult to acquire him. If you're somebody that believes in Devon Achane, and look, I get it, he's undersized, blah, 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 but he's a great, great fit for this offense long term. And Mostert is not getting any younger and has a history of being banged up. So I would absolutely be looking at Devon Achane before this week happens because you could miss out. In the same game, though, I got to talk about my guy Javonte. I've got to. Miami, they have the 4th most points given up to the running back position so far. We've seen him get a steady workload the first couple weeks, and while we haven't seen big plays, he's looked very solid in all of his opportunities and all of his touches. That big game is probably coming at some point, and this seems like a logical point to give him a solid workload, maybe even a little more than we've seen, but also him really benefit from that. And hopefully he won't get vultured on some TDs like he did in past weeks. I think this is the week that we see the big breakout blow-up game from Javonte Adams. From Javonte Williams. My favorite player, and I can't even get his name right. All right, last but not least, I'm keeping an eye on Jordan Love. Man, he's been playing really, really well the first couple weeks. But there's some underlying metrics that would say maybe he's getting a little bit lucky. I want to see how he performs this week against the New Orleans Saints defense. That Saints defense is no joke. Marshawn Lattimore is one of the best defensive backs in the league. They could really shut some of these guys. So I'm really wanting to see, is Jordan Love the guy that he looks like the first couple weeks? It's tough to know for sure against the Bears defense and the Atlanta Falcons defense, but this is a great litmus test for a guy like Jordan Love that many are talking about. I would rather him over, and you can list a whole line of really good, consistent fantasy football quarterbacks that people are now taking Jordan Love over. So this is going to be a big week that could either boost his stock or we could see it come back to earth. So I'm keeping an eye on Jordan Love for the Packers as well. All right, guys, that's it. Let me know who you are keeping an eye on in week 3, what games, what situations, what players. Put them in the comments below, and we'll talk to you guys again next week.